Okay, welcome everybody to the Swan Circulation User Group for February 21st. I'm Victoria, the Circ Manager at River Forest Public Library, and co-chairing is also Peggy, who's not here today. And then Crystal, if you guys wanted to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Vella. I'm the UX consultant here at Swan. I'm going to pass the mic to some other Swan folks that you might hear from today. Vicky, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Vicky Totten. I am the consultant for IT and system support here at Swan. And next to you, Helen.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Helen Pinder. I am the resource sharing consultant for Swan, and I will pass to Tara.
This is Tara Wood, and I'm the user experience manager at Swan. Oh, wait, do I need to pass to anyone? No, I think that's it.
Okay, I think, is that everybody?
That's everyone I think who might have to talk today. So yeah.
Okay, so the next thing is I just want to take this time to welcome any new Circ managers or supervisors, and if there are any of you guys here, if you wanted to introduce yourselves, feel free to take this opportunity to say hi and give a little short intro. Okay, I think nobody has unmuted for that. So I guess Crystal will move on to your section next then.
Okay, sounds good. I am going to just share my screen real quick. Okay. Hi everyone. I just wanted to show you a little bit of documentation in the circulation area that we have gone through. So you'll see a few new labels here in this documentation area. For circulation, you'll see library cards, special library cards, check-ins and checkouts. That should seem familiar. That's been there. Patron notices, that's also the same, holds, very similar. Item management and fees and patron record maintenance. This, along with days closed. The reorganization of the documentation had been something that was coming for quite a while. I would say we had gotten some feedback, pulled some stats on pages that were frequently visited and things like that. And we, if you can remember, we did a few card sorting activities with this group that created these labels that you see in front of you. We first had everyone kind of think about what you'd call these things, and we pulled out specific pages that were in the circulation documentation and then kind of had you group them and create labels. And with that being said, we took all that information, we then did it again within labels that you all created, and then had everybody organize those things. And then we took that along with our statistics and kind of mushed the two worlds together and created this new organization structure. So let's say if you went into library cards, you will see a few new things that you might notice on the page. You'll see lost cards, user ID manager, non-resident cards, and some new documentation that was created about removing a patron. We tried to identify a few gaps, and throughout the year, we will be incorporating things that Circulation Advisory comes up with to put into our documentation, whether that be just things that need to be flushed out, or best practices, things like that. We also have this area of special library cards that's new, but under here you'll find non-SWAN RB patrons, outreach, the outreach module, best practices for book discussions, so how you create those book discussion cards, this limited use profile, anything that's like a library card, but that is just slightly different from your everyday use. So your teacher cards, excuse me, your online patron registration, your school partnerships, things like that. Also, you'll see here the kind of to-do of checkouts and check-ins. This page is a little bit different. They were all shorter pages, so we went ahead with this tabbed structure. And you'll see we have checking out without a library card, item renewals, and offline circulation. So feel free to kind of peruse, take a look at the new hierarchies if you haven't already. Yeah, and this is a little bit newer, this heading here, this item management and fees. But this is basically, it's kind of like the same thing under a new name, just something that was a little more robust and that made sense to everyone. We have under here our damaged and unusable, billing a user, how to mark an item lost, that kind of thing. And then we have this damaged and unusable, claims returned, cashless transaction management, billing for services for sale, and then the materials recovery service. And then under here, this patron record maintenance, that is basically what it sounds like, where you'll find your NCOA, the blocking patrons for mail returned, and using user groups and workflows. So things that touch, workflows and Symphony workflows and things that you might use, but not things that you might use on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily anything to do with the creation of a card, but more of the maintaining those records, and things like that. I think I'm the next thing on the agenda as well. But I can answer any questions about the documentation if there is any right now. Let me look at the chat here. Oh, okay. No questions about that. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on to days closed. Vicky, feel free to jump in, but here's the days closed documentation on our support site, and we wanted to give a gentle reminder here on when you should to remember to do this or to contact SWAN with a help ticket if you want us to do it for you. But basically, we've been seeing just some holidays not being added, and that affects all of your due dates. So, that's why it's important to do that. Keep that in mind. If you're updating your hours, you used to be open on Sunday, now you're not. You have to go into the calendar and do that. And this kind of puts it all out there step by step on how to do that. So you would put these dates in here. You can say you're closed on Sundays, you're not closed on Sundays, and so on and so forth. And correct me if I'm wrong, Vicky, but they should start looking to make sure they have their dates in by October. Was that the?
Yeah, that's usually the a good date because your OCLC interlibrary loans that you're sending outside of SWAN, those check out for 6 weeks. So that's probably a good time to get that in there to make sure you're not hitting those holidays.
Yeah, definitely.
And
did I miss anything? Go ahead. You can.
I think a little farther down, you'll see the calendar widgets, and I really prefer that to use that. It's just I'm on my second set of trifocals, and sometimes those little numbers are hard for me to see to make sure I have them formatted correctly. So this works a little better for me.
Perfect. Thanks for the
Totally up
hot
to you.
tip.
You got it.
You might come, at least this is, maybe I'm showing my age here. You used to hit a threshold on those closed dates that you could enter. Is that still the case, Vicky?
It is.
Oh,
You want
yay.
to remove those older dates. They won't affect anything in the past. If you had your due date set or anything and it's already gotten to build status, it's not looking at that anyway. So go ahead. Don't be afraid to get rid of those older dates.
Yeah,
I
and you
forget what
might
the
have
threshold
to.
is.
Yeah, it's quite a bit, but you might, if you are doing this and then you get an error that says something like, they can't enter anything. You can't enter anything else. You might want to go back into the beginning of those closed dates and start removing some of those dates. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Are there any questions, Victoria, in the chat about
Nope.
this process? Okay, perfect. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it back to you, and I'll be quiet.
Did it go back to sharing mine or do I, oh, here. Found it. Okie doke. So the next topic is staff cards. There was a question from a library. What are member libraries doing about staff cards once someone leaves their employ? So feel free to write what you do in the chat or unmute. At River Forest, I'll just share what we do. We will make sure that there's nothing checked out and delete their card as long as they're not somebody who lives in the local area. Otherwise, we just return them back to patron status if they live in the area. So feel free to chime in.
Victoria, this is Helen. What sort of a timeline do you do that? Do you do like as a part of the exit interview, or how does that work?
Yeah, so as they're exiting, the person who does it just reminds them to return everything. And then I pretty promptly do it after, unless there's something checked out. Then I usually wait until it's returned and I just keep checking on it periodically.
Thank you.
And then there's someone in the chat. Marcy said that's our practice also. Martin from OPPL, we've added it to the offboarding process. We do the same as I mentioned. I usually touch base with their manager to have items returned.
Just to mention, we use Bamboo HR for all of our HR stuff, and our HR director like set up kind of automated tasks. So he'll send an automated message through Bamboo HR every time there's an offboarding. So this is actually just part of it. So there's no need to kind of remember or to line it up with a manager or anything. It's just an automatic thing, and I go into workflows and amend the account that way. So if you're using any kind of HR software, it might be a good thing to automate the process.
Oh, that's good to know. Kathy from Addison, is that correct, ADD? Do you have any issues with record retention? According to our business manager, we can't delete cards when we want to. We have to expire the cards and wait until the state gives approval for deletion for record retention. Does anyone want to share? I know at River Forest we haven't been told we can't do that. we got some responses. Rebecca said we've never included library cards under the records retention policy, and Martin has I've not heard of that before. Yeah, so I'm not sure about that question. It's a good question to look into. Maybe then we don't use paper applications, so I think that's part of record retention. That makes sense. Anybody else want to add what they do for their staff cards? Or I hope that answered whoever asked this question. Hope this answered your question. Should this process be monitored by the circ manager? I do it, and it looks like several other libraries have the circ manager who does it. Anybody want to share their thoughts on that? Rebecca said we're a small library and I'm the only one who deletes library cards. That's the same at River Forest too. We're a very small library. So I pretty much handle all of the library card related tasks. So I guess it really just depends on your library size and who feels comfortable doing that.
Does anybody have a special process that you use if items have gone to lost status and they're still not returning them? If you report to unique, do you include them then? Because typically we let you know that you should mark your staff cards as no unique. I know it can be hard sometimes to get those items back, especially if the staff member has left on unpleasant circumstances.
Kathy added that they do all of the library card deletions. We don't use unique at River Forest, so I ended up checking, and it did take one staff member, like, a few months to return the remainder of the items, but they did come back. I don't know if anyone else wants to share. It's hard doing this by myself. I'm sorry if the dialogue isn't too riveting. I don't see any more comments. Hubble said we follow our village's retention policy and apply it only to the written record application, not the digital record. So Kathy, yes, I think your records retention policies may be unique with no paper record and that it includes library cards. Oh, thanks, Helen. You said I'm doing great. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next topic, but feel free to continue to enter stuff into the chat and I'll read it as best as I can. The next question was about smelly items. A circ manager suggested that when an item is bagged and returned as smelly and marked unusable, to please indicate the type of smell, for example, cigarette smoke, moldy, because no one wants to open a Ziploc bag to inspect with that description. How are y'all sending these items? Should we be sending poop or mold items even if it's bagged? So again, feel free to unmute or put in the chat. I've done for moldy items, I've taken pictures and emailed the circ manager and asked, do you feel comfortable with me double bagging this, or will the photos suffice? Certainly don't want to send something in the bins that would risk spreading to other items.
Hi, it's Crystal from Swan. I'm going to jump in here and ask that you all review the damaged and unusable things. And that kind of can be a guideline a little bit for you to not put things into delivery. If something is covered in poop, please do not send that. Like,
Yeah,
please don't. Those poor sorters.
yeah,
People touch these things. And that's just gross. Or like, cat pee. I know we've all been there. It's gross that we even have to say it. But like there's things that have happened that have been returned when they definitely shouldn't have. So I would encourage you to just call that circ manager and just be like, hey, I'm gonna toss this for you. Here's the information. I cannot send this back in delivery because this is disgusting and you're not going to want to touch this and nobody should have to. I don't even want to touch this kind of thing. Um, yeah. So that's my little PSA. I'll
Crystal, I'm going to
mm,
second you on that one.
okay, good.
We all have war stories of, ew, smell this. What does it smell like? Don't send that. You're going to have a conversation with that other manager anyway, so it might as well start with an email instead of, a stinky bag. So ditto what Crystal said. Please just email it or call.
Sarah added, that's the best practice. Agreed. Okay, so I think that's a pretty solid answer to that question. Don't send poopy items or moldy. Contact circ manager. The next question was how are other member libraries managing the collection of database signatures to replace the old signed registration cards? Are they tossing the cards first or gradually weeding them as signatures are secured? Or are they at all concerned about the necessity to have a signed agreement on file while users stop in to sign their database? What's the best practice? Anybody want to jump in? Just whoever asked this question want to jump in?
Hi, good morning. It's Sarah. That was submitted by me. Thank you for adding it to the agenda this morning, and good morning to everyone who's joined us. Um, my, we've got a plan, or we have a system in place. It's a very slow, methodical process, but we don't want to lessen the importance of making certain that we do have some type of an agreement with the household or family in the community before we're aborting that process. I just want to know if anyone else had a smoother, more seamless way they're going about it. You can email me. You don't have to waste time in the meeting with this. It was just one of those things where, and I'm having a hard time getting our clerks to remember that when someone stops in to sign the database, we give a little gift. We give them the bookmark with the QR code for how to get the new, to get the new catalog uh, ordering process, and we give them a pin with our web address on it. It's kind of like, hi, thank you, sign the registration. Here's a small gift. And but our clerks are having a difficult time remembering to go to the cabinet and pull the old registration card because we plan to put those in our shredding day and to destroy them all at once. So that's what's going on at Richton Park Library. But I was just curious to see how others are managing that.
You do paper signature, or you don't collect, like on we have a little pad where we collect signatures and it saves it to the workflows record. Is that what you're talking about?
We now are equipped to have our users sign the database into the workflows. So And as they stop in to do that, they have the disclaimer about here's why you're signing. It's the same agreement when they originally obtained their card, and we even have a printed copy of that agreement just in case they feel uncomfortable just signing the pad that they can take with them and review it later. And we no longer do physical cards with signatures on them. We're doing everything electronically, but a lot of this now for the new registrants, no brainer. They are already good to go. There was never a former physical card, but with those who have been with us for a period of time, those are the ones that we're gradually bringing on board, and got a little ways to go yet before that's a complete process. It's probably, I don't know when we'll finish it, but it's ongoing.
Gotcha. Um, I don't see any comments. No one's chimed in yet.
I'm sorry. This is Cindy from Indian Prairie. I have two questions. One, do your library cards expire? Because if they do, you could get those signatures when they're renewing them. And a separate question, is there anything in the works from Swan of updating those pads to more of a digital signature kind of a thing?
I'll address the second part of that, your question there. If we are, so far, these are the only pads that are working with workflows. So I will pass on your question to Cersei Dynix and see if they have come any further with getting some better signature pads that can work with Symphony. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Did you say that you don't have physical cards at all? You just use digital cards?
Correct. We no longer have our users fill out a registration card. They do an online registration for us. We have a template when they come in. We started that during the pandemic to avoid the handling of paper, period. But we continued that because they're able to register multiple children in the household. They don't have to do a card or something for each one. It's all in that one template. But once it's completed and we enter them into the database, we destroy that. We don't keep that. And for all new users, no, we do not have registration cards. We are relying on the signature on the database. Parents are signing for the kids' cards, and parents are signing for their own cards, of course, until the kids turn 18. Then they are invited with a birthday postcard to come in and update their privileges to an adult status.
Okay, yeah, my brain went in a weird direction. I thought you were talking about actual library cards rather than registration cards. I'm like, how can you do? Yeah, so thank you for confirming that.
Not a problem. There's a lot of jargon. It's sometimes hard to keep track. No problem.
Yeah, Helen asked the same. So the registration is paperless, but a physical card is still issued, which sounds like was correct. Patty responded, we put notes in patron accounts for those that need an e-signature. We have staff review the registration cards that are on file when staff is off desk. And if there's an e-signature on file, we put the registration card in our shredding pile. It's a slow process, but it is a downtime project. That's actually what we do as well. I have a staff double check the cards, and any like missed signature gets added as a note to capture it next time, and then we shred.
If you have recently added a signature pad where you were not collecting signatures electronically before, just let us know and we can add notes to all of your patron records that do not have a signature. We can just have a note saying needs e-signature or something like that. So you don't have to do it manually.
Awesome. And Sarah responded, it sounds like RPS too. So.
And I just want to add, I did request that, and you're absolutely right. That has been very valuable to us to have that notation on our user accounts that do not have signatures on file, so that when they come in, if the clerks are on top of it, checking the alerts and the notes, that is collected at that time. I've also recently invited our reference desk to at least click on those tabs when they're working with a user requesting books or other helps, not to take care of it, but to direct them to us so that while they're in the building, we can get those things done.
Okay. Julia also added, I'm not sure if I missed this, but are database signatures now being required system-wide, or are there just certain libraries who are requiring this?
There's nothing in SWAN that is requiring an electronic signature. I don't think there's anything within Rails either.
This is Cindy from Indian Prairie. I know there was a little discussion now about total digital cards instead of having the plastic cards. I am very close to not issuing plastic cards. We do have a few patrons that really want that plastic card, but most patrons through Patron Point receive a digital barcode, and then they just throw it in the Swan app and they're done.
Oh, that's cool.
There's a question in the chat from our database signatures now required system-wide, and no, they are not.
Marcy and Cindy, do you have any other methods of issuing digital-only cards aside from Patron Point?
No, just Patron Point right now.
Great, thank you, they said.
Oh, and I want to say, we do have, one, if they do come into the library to get it, next to the guest services desk, there is a computer which has the Patron Point form on there. So even if they come in, they're still going through Patron Point.
Cindy, do your digital cards have a different prefix to your physical cards?
The prefix obviously is the same. It's right. What we did is, I think and Vicky may remember this more, but it was the number. It was like, yes, we started instead of like, say the physical card started after the zeros with a 16. They now start with like a 9 or something like that.
Got
So
it.
yes, we went way far in the future.
So if you have a conversation with someone who wants a new card, and if they say they don't want a physical card, you just direct them to get an, I guess we would call it an online account.
Correct.
But your digital cards must, because ours are limited to only online resources, but yours are for everything. Then I take it.
Correct. Once they Patron Point verifies everything and it goes through, they have a full access card that, you know, if everything is good, the card number that is issued is full access, and our cards do not expire. So it is a never expiration date also.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This actually ties perfectly into, there was a last minute question that didn't make it to the agenda. But I hope it's okay if I say it, library. Batavia is looking to implement a new online library card application. This would be different than Swan's online use only card, since we're looking to issue patron cards with full permission. Just looking to see what other libraries are doing and what their process looks like. So this kind of ties in with that combo.
Cindy, looking back at yours when you started with Patron Point, I believe we had you use a 6 rather than a 9. We were looking for the 9 to show that it went through the SWAN online patron
Oh, okay.
registration. And um, the Patron Point is something that you're paying for, right? It's a
Correct.
service that you pay for. So there is some additional checking of where the patron resides and verification involved in that, I think, right?
Correct. Correct.
So we are in the process of moving from the SWAN online patron registration tool, and that was definitely just meant to be kind of a stepping point for everyone to use if you wanted to use it, and it came in very handy during COVID. But with that, the verification of the patron being in your service area was most definitely something that is a manual process, and it's something that your staff was meant to follow up on. So we are looking to move from that tool, though, to incorporating it into Aspen. So, but it would be, I believe it's going to be pretty much the same, that it's something that staff will follow up on as far as verifying residents in your service area.
Marcy responded, we have a form on our website. We get an email, staff verifies the address, then we send the card through mail with return to sender clearly stamped on envelope. We've received a few back. We follow up with the patron. There may have been a missing apartment number, etc. We do get a few out of service applications.
So I guess it's kind of up to the library. It's what are you using the online patron registration for? Is it that you want to make sure that patrons who don't want to come in the library have access to your e-resources? Or are you using it as a means of reaching out to patrons who you want to come into the library? I think it's a philosophical thing at that point.
Rebecca added, any online registration needs to authenticate on the village name and the zip code. This would eliminate our clever friends in New Jersey who register as Paramus, New Jersey 60525. And then Hubble added, Vicki, I assume any library would be able to opt out of any future Aspen integrated registration tool?
I'm going to defer over to UX because they are handling the building of the Aspen tool.
Yep, nothing would change. You would be able to use the Aspen online registration or your own. The only thing that we would eventually sunset the SWAN online registration tool. We wouldn't keep that running at the same time as Aspen. But otherwise, it would be pretty similar to what we have now.
Awesome. Any other comments? Anyone want to share what they do? We're making good time, so feel free to jump in. Don't worry about Okay, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, but again, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll read it, make sure we don't miss it. A library circ manager wanted to recommend watching There's Delivery video on the Rail website. They watched it and learned some valuable tips that they didn't really give much thought to, and then required each member of their circ department to watch them as part of staff development. It's a good way to make sure we are doing our part to ensure that items are not damaged during transport. Did I include? I didn't include it in the agenda. But I'll see if someone could share that link in the chat so people could go and watch it. And then I don't know if anyone wanted to comment, share how helpful they were. I thought it was interesting. I watched it after I put that on the agenda. I thought it was interesting. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. SWAN temporary digital card. A librarian asked that they'd like to hear from libraries that use SWAN's temporary digital cards. Kind of tie back into the conversation before. Is anyone seeing an increase in cards created with the applicant using an address that is in district but not in their residence, creating multiple accounts or applying to more than one library at once? I know at River Forest, I've seen a few like fake addresses. People have used like our address before. So I've gone through and deleted. And then I believe it was a discussion on the SWAN forum that if there are ones getting through that should be captured, and I think Vicky can chime in, that we should send in a ticket.
If it's creating a duplicate record, the name is the same.
Yes.
And the address.
Yeah, I've had those before. At LGS, I remove about a dozen fake addresses each month. Sarah said the good thing is that it's only a 3-month privilege.
And you can change that as well. Once that record is created, you can change it if you'd like. Your email going out to that patron is saying that it's for it. They'll have a 3-month privilege.
Cindy, from Indian Prairie again. Just like I was saying earlier with Patron Point, yes, paid service, but it does also check to see if they had a record in SWAN. If they do, they receive an email that says something to the effect of, "Oh, something went wrong. Visit the library." And usually they'll call and we'll say, "Oh yes, you have a card at, Woodridge Library," or whatever it is. So it does, not only does it check address with zip code, all that, it also checks to see if they had a card already in SWAN.
And Sarah added, at least it reduces the amount of policing. Helen said, just as an observation, I'm seeing an increase in temporary and limited use cards referred to unique. Patricia added, there may be student cards at NUHS as well as public library cards.
That's a good point. We'll make sure to incorporate that as well. If it's not already, we may be ignoring any national records. And if it's not, it's definitely something to add to the list for Aspen tool.
Martha asked, I'm wondering about patron. Oops, sorry, it scrolled up too fast. I'm wondering about Patron Point cost and if SWAN could incorporate this when the app is incorporated in Aspen.
That's Tara. So I can see this a little bit. We can't I mean, if you want to use Patron Point, I would recommend investigating Patron Point. We're never going to be able to incorporate Patron Point into Aspen, as it's kind of its own thing that you subscribe to. What we are investigating are the APIs that a service like Patron Point uses to validate your identity. So you've also probably run into these maybe if you're signing up for a credit card or some similar service like that, where you might answer questions about, maybe cards that you've owned in the past addresses, that those types of identity verification services, those would also come with a cost. It's just how it is. It's a you're validating an address, and that is gonna validating someone's identity, and that's gonna come with a cost. So that is definitely on the future roadmap for the Aspen tool. We just have to see what services would be available, how much they would cost, what could be incorporated into Aspen.
Awesome, thanks, Tara.
Yeah.
Hubble asked, how does Patron Point verify an address? Are eligible addresses essentially preloaded, or does it cross-reference a GIS system of some kind?
Yeah, that's basically it. We're just talking about it. It uses, I'm not exactly sure of the exact service they use, but it's most likely a third-party service that's used for identity verification.
Patricia asked, we have had calls from libraries wanting to change or delete our cards. And Martha said, thank you. Well, thank you or thank you.
It probably is a good time to remind your staff too that according to CIRC policy, yes, patrons can have 2 cards if one of them is for a special or academic library. So a patron can have a record at Morton Arboretum or National University of Health Sciences or the Esophageal Society, and also have a public card. And no, you don't want to link them. Excuse me, not link them. You don't want to re-register them or ask the other library to remove them.
Thanks, Vicki. Anybody else? Questions, comments about that? I'm not seeing anyone jump in. That concludes all the agenda items. So now it's around the Zoom meeting time. If you want, I mean, you want to jump in and ask any questions that weren't on the agenda or chat about something at your library that is really cool that's happening. Oops, there's a chat. I have a question about unique collections, specifically, what is the age limit to send someone to collections? I found a NRS Juve patron who is two years old and sent to collections for losing multiple LGS items. I did email North Riverside staff, but haven't heard back from them. We don't do collections at River Forest Public Library, so I unfortunately don't have an answer to that, but if someone wants...
I can speak to that. The user profiles are set by the individual libraries. So if somebody's picking up Juve cards, that's their policy. Collections is a misnomer. Nobody gets sent to collections anymore, but they will be referred to unique for follow-up, and they'll get the emails, not the emails, the phone calls and the snail mail, trying to encourage those things to get returned, but nobody's credit report gets impacted anymore. It's been several years since that rule changed in Illinois. So if you want to, if some libraries want to include their juvenile cards, they certainly can. If you want to exclude them, you can do that too. If anybody has any questions, if they're wondering if they're referring their juvenile patrons, they can send me an email or open a ticket and I can take a look at your settings.
Like I added, I would have thought unique collections would only be ages 18 plus.
I think for when they did credit report people, I believe that was true. I think the records would still get picked up and the contact would happen, but the collection reporting wouldn't happen for minors.
Sarah asked another subject, once users turn 18, are libraries forgiving the fines and fees to give them a fresh start as an adult? We're a fine-free library, so don't worry about that. But if we were to do fines, I think that's a refreshing start. So I like that idea. For lost items. Oh, we're a pretty forgiving library, so I'll just chime in to fill the silence that we would work with the kid, you know, if it's a super lost old item and it's ours, sure, let's give them a fresh start and get them back in checking out. Marcy said we do it WMS and HDS. Hubble said, Sarah, I'll use discretion and forgive lost items when a user turns 18 if they're our own items.
Victoria, I'll chime in again here. I think that's arguably a best practice. And if the card has been in existence for a while and that item has really been gone a while, I mean, if they're still in the district, I mean, that tax revenue is still being collected. You could make a case that they have paid for it by not using their library service. That's just my 2 cents. I'll be quiet now.
No, I think that's a really good point. But yeah, I mean, we really just want to get them back in using the library, and it's our item. It seems like a lot of libraries feel the same, or some libraries feel the same. Any other questions you want to jump in? Any updates on the potential changes to auto renewals?
No, we don't have any updates at this time, Hubble.
Well, can I add something fun to the convo that we did at River Forest Public Library as an idea? It's not a like super serious thing, but we did a staff cart naming at the library, and we've named all of our library carts. So I'm just going to add a little fun update in here. They're all punny cart names, and that went over very well with staff. So if you ever need something fun to add to like an in-service meeting, I highly suggest it. Marcy added, has anyone encountered libraries who return your items checked out to unusable, but the previous user is their damaged shelf or something similar? Martha says, yes, I emailed the manager when that happens. Helen says, yes, and I recommend doing as Martha suggests. So making sure you email the manager. And Marcy said, me too. I guess my request would be for libraries not to do that. I agree. If I have a spot on my desk where I have my staff leave those items for me to go over and look through. We're a smaller library. I'm not sure for larger libraries if maybe that's what's happening, but Okay, so that there's no more agenda topics. I don't know if anybody has any more questions you want to ask, or if we want to conclude early, or at least just end the recording part now.